Now, before we move off of the brilliance of Rachel Maddow today, which apparently we're obsessed by, no, she's done a great thing. Now, I liked her, what she did in finding those Rick Warren tapes, her commentary on it, etc. I loved what she did in terms of an apology for a guest she had on the other day. Now, the reason I love this is because you will never see this anywhere else on television.
All right, yeah.
All right, now she had Laura Tyson on. She's going to explain it for you. Let's watch.
Underreported holy mackerel stories in today's news. We begin with a little housekeeping concerning a segment we did last night on the bailout. You may recall that I proposed reconstituting this TV show as a bank, since the banks that got Wall Street bailout money essentially got to take that money and run with almost no questions asked. The application for bailout money for banks was a grand total of 2 pages long, and the banks themselves essentially laughed in the face of the Associated Press this week when the AP made inquiries as to how the banks had used those public dollars. Such a deal, right? Well, the guest who I brought on to discuss and debate those issues with me was the former chair of the White House Council of Economic Advisors, President Clinton's National Economic Advisor, former Haas Business School and London Business School Dean, Laura Tyson, eminently qualified to talk about the economic crisis and the government's response to it. Now, what I regret that I did not realize at the time of last night's show is that Dr. Tyson is also on the board of Morgan Stanley. Now, this is publicly available information, and it is absolutely my fault for not digging it up before the show. Fortunately, my friend and frequent guest, columnist David Sirota, has things like this memorized. He shot me an email about the conflict of interest, since Morgan Stanley is a company that received $10 billion in TARP bailout money. For her part, Laura Tyson told our show today, quote, "I am a professional economist and business school professor. I appeared on the show and answered the questions in this capacity. My answers reflect my professional opinion, and I am solely responsible for them. They do not represent the views of Morgan Stanley or any other private company." That, of course, is fair enough. But what I regret is hosting a discussion about companies that have benefited from the bailout without disclosing that one of the people having that discussion has a significant financial interest in one of those companies. Very sorry. Very embarrassing.
God, that's great. Maybe I'm over-obsessing about this, but I don't see TV hosts doing that. And pointing out the corporate connections of their guests. I mean, we didn't do that for so long. That's partly what led to the Iraq War and the Iraq occupation for so long. New York Times has had a couple of brilliant articles about how these guys who work for the defense industry would then come on and talk. And Barry McCaffrey was a one-man military-industrial complex, would come on and talk about how we needed to start the war, how we needed to maintain the war, and we needed to do it with the weapons that his company was selling. No, it was outrageous, and they did it over and over again. And here, Rachel points out, hey, my bad, I had a guest on that had total interest in this. Now, to give you some more detail on that, David Sirota did have a column on it, and he pointed out that Laura Tyson gets $350,000 a year from Morgan Stanley. She has 79,000 shares of Morgan Stanley. So when the other night she was on Maddow's program, she said, yes, Morgan Stanley should get the bailout, and yes, they should keep paying dividends to their shareholders. She was referring to herself.
Right.
Of course she thinks they should keep paying dividends because she's got 79,000 shares of Morgan Stanley. Give credit to Rachel for being the only person who would have pointed it out and who bothered to actually look at criticism and say, oh, wow, that's actually true, and I will correct it.
Yeah, if you get criticized a lot, you should pay attention to what they're saying. You shouldn't necessarily respond to it, and they're not necessarily right. But the odds that they're fully wrong are pretty remote.
Now, contrast that to what Rush Limbaugh does. And we've played a couple of clips of Rush Limbaugh in the past when he said, all these people are attacking me. Well, you know what that proves to me? Proves I'm right.
Yeah.
Okay. Now, it might not prove one or the other, but it certainly doesn't by itself prove that you're right.
No, I mean, that's what it proves. That's what it proves in the least.
Right. So when you compare and contrast a conservative host and a progressive host, you see the difference in open-mindedness, and, I mean, you make the call.